Welcome to How is God Calling You? A production of CTNY, the Catholic television network of Youngstown. It is a show that seeks to stimulate and assist youth and young adults to discover the path that God has chosen for them. Vocations to the priesthood, religious life, marriage, and single life will all be discussed. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Hello and welcome to this edition of How is God Calling You? Today we're talking with the Oblate Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And joining me in today's show is Sister Luann and Sister Kristen. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
When we talk about vocations to religious community, obviously the first word that we think about in talking about any religious community is the word charism. We all know that word means gift in Greek, but we want to talk specifically about your vocation and why you answered the call to be a sister of the Oblates and what the charism is that attracted you to this vocation. Why don't we start with you, Sister Kristen?
Well, charism, certainly, in Latin it is the word call. I felt that call within my heart. I had done a few things, graduated from high school, attended college, and was working towards a degree. And I was working in the food service industry. But there was a greater need in my heart to continue to serve. I had a great respect and admiration for the priests, especially the priests in my home parish. We went through a number of priests in a very short period of time. And rather than being critical of them, I wanted to be able to do something more productive, more helpful.
And Sister Luann, tell us about your call, your vocation.
I always felt a call to work within the church. My parents had been very active in the church, and so at a young age we began working at different Catholic charities, appeals. We went to very many seminars with our parents, and so I always felt the need to deepen that call, and I spent many years looking for the community that would help me to deepen my prayer life. And when I found out that our sisters pray for and work with the priests, it made me feel that I had found the right place in the church.
One of the beautiful aspects of religious life is that whole sense of community. And we know that religious women and men live in community. And community has lots of benefits, but it also has challenges. Share with us your experience of community life, and in particular, describe your community and how you celebrate that as an oblate.
The benefits of community can best be described as my experience in college when I went as a sister. I had responsibilities around the house, and other sisters needed to pick up for that. Other sisters supported me as far as giving me assistance when I needed help in my coursework, or picked up for my duties around my office around the house. They were there to celebrate with me when I needed, when I had something joyful. They were there to encourage me when times got difficult. And that was very beneficial for me in my college experience.
And what about community life for you, Sister Luann?
For me, it was a matter of always being somewhere with someone that I could share my faith experiences, that I could share my day-to-day times, my trials and my joys. I remember feeling very happy at several times when one person in our community has some kind of a special occasion. It is for all of us to enjoy. And our parents are so welcome. It seems like we know the other sisters' parents as if they were our own. And my mother said to me one time, I didn't lose one daughter, I gained 20.
You know, that whole sense of community basically is really like family life when you think about it. And so there's that added blessing that you had mentioned, that your family is part of that whole community life. Is that true in most, if not all, religious orders? Is that your experience? The whole sense of family being part of that as well?
I have a limited experience. I would say if those who live together in a convent, I would assume would have a good family experience. If they live in their apartments or individually, I would think that would be expressed differently. I would think that if you are in religious life, community would have to be present in some expression, but maybe community days or events where they gather together and celebrate.
One of the, I think, vital aspects of any vocation and the sustaining of that is the prayer life, and how important prayer is within our life, not only as religious, but also as Christians. And so how do you in your community and also individually celebrate your prayer life?
We begin our day with a simple prayer. When it's time for us to rise in the morning, we begin our day by saying a simple prayer to the Lord in thanksgiving for what our life has been and will be throughout the next day. We have community prayer beginning. Grand silence is beginning from night prayer until the morning prayer. And so we've had this time to be alone with the Lord, and our speaking is just during the office, during the Mass. When we go to breakfast, the silence is broken. And we still have those times every few hours to come back to the Lord, to say another hour of the office, to spend in private prayer, and to pray our rosary, sometimes privately, sometimes in community. And the scripture study we do sometimes is by ourselves, and sometimes we have a joint meditation with the other sisters.
And how about your prayer life, Sister Kristen? How is that celebrated, but also how does that strengthen your vocation?
Without prayer, I know I would not be doing many of the things that I have experienced here in community. I tend to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more shy. Prayer gives me the courage to go out and challenge myself a little bit more. Prayer in community gives me that added encouragement. We often pray for what we are going to face during the day, or what we have, experienced, both blessings and challenges, as the evening comes on. It is that prayer that gives the courage to go on, and the ability for us to offer what we can for the benefit of the priests.
Let's talk about the word apostolate. And we know how important that is within the life of someone committed to the church as a nun or as a priest. So how does that sense of apostolate being exercised in your particular life? What exactly is your apostolate as an oblate?
Our apostolate, I'd have to say, is as wide as the church is wide. There are a number of sisters who are busy in many different ministries. Some of the sisters are teachers. Some of us work in the parish at all different levels. We have one sister who works in the diocese. We have sisters who work even within our own community. And we say that those sisters' life, those sisters' work is to pray for the priests and to pray for the community in whatever the needs there are.
And Sister Kristen, tell us about your particular apostolate.
I'm involved in education. I'm involved in many facets of education. I teach 3-year-olds. I teach kindergarten. I spend half a day in one program, half a day in another program. I went to school for administration, so I am learning this year to assume responsibility for our school. On Saturdays, I go out and teach catechism to second graders. I'm involved in going out for vocation ministry. We go out for religious retirement appeal. We go out for the missions appeal. So a wide variety. I try to be as available as possible for the needs of our community.
We're coming down to the last few minutes of our time together with our first segment. I'd like to ask you, you mentioned about the religious retirement appeal, and I know that I've celebrated Mass where you've preached and you've done a wonderful job. When you go into parishes to give that appeal, how are you received, and what does that do for you and for your vocation?
I'd say the greatest reception, usually it's a very warm reception. Many people come up and acknowledge the fact that we're in the habit and how good it is that we are in the habit. I try to extend that, that all religious offer for the benefit of Christ. We're serving Christ's needs. It definitely is uplifting. It definitely gives us a little bit of the encouragement to continue on, with the work that we are called to do.
Sister Luann, in your try to go back in time a little bit. Tell us briefly about your discerning and what was it that really attracted you to be a sister, first of all, and then to this community in particular.
I had always enjoyed being with our sisters in grade school, not our community, but just the Sisters of St. Joseph who taught me. I was inspired by their prayer, and I wanted to develop a closer relationship with our Lord. I tried it during my working years, and I never seemed to find enough time to pray. Daily Mass, prayer and the office and the rosary with friends. But my prayer life in community has been so uplifting that when I first met the sisters, when I first visited our convent, I felt like I was at home, and that the many years of looking for the right place to pray, looking for the right group of sisters to pray with, had finally been fulfilled.
Well, we're coming down to about 1 minute left on this first part of our show today. And Sister Kristen's going to stay with us for the second part, and we're going to invite someone else on. But Sister Luann, you're going to be leaving us. Is there any closing words that you would like to say, or anything of encouragement to those that might be watching, that might be considering a vocation to religious life?
First of all, I'd like to say that there are many, many opportunities in religious life. Some are for people who feel very skilled and talented and come and bring gifts of their education. There are some sisters who do the ordinary things that nobody sees, and those sisters are definitely welcome. Those are the kind of people that make up good sisters. It's important for us to always be open to whatever call God has for us.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her. Instead of sitting on the couch, I hope to clean up.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I sent my husband a love email.
What have I done for my marriage today? It's a good question.
I gave her a call and say, thinking of her. And the kids.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
We're going to the museums as a family.
What have I done for my marriage today?
I made my wife coffee and breakfast this morning.
It's going to be her birthday next week, so I've been spending time today making arrangements to make that extra special.
Oh, we're spending the day together?
I bought her an orchid.
Hassan was able to let me sleep in by taking care of him in the morning.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. She's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Small changes can make a world of difference. Get started at foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
Welcome back to our show, How is God Calling You? We're talking with the Oblate Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And back on our show is Sister Kristen. Welcome again. And now we welcome Stephanie to our show. It's nice to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
we really want to get into our discussion beginning with that whole idea of discernment. Whenever we think about a call or responding to a call, obviously there's a process that we take. And so I'd like to ask Stephanie a little bit about your discernment process and what is attracting you, first of all, to religious life, and in particular to the Oblates.
Well, I think one of the things that kind of first attracted me was reading the lives of the saints. And so to me, a religious vocation was never strange because I had read about it so much. And then I think also another important factor was there's an organization called the Apostolate for Family Consecration, which we were involved a lot with. And they have, part of their organization is a lay apostolate. And so I saw them. And a lot of the youth that go to these events, they aren't shy about discussing the fact that they're discerning a religious vocation. And so to me, it was never strange. So I think when I began to feel God's call, it wasn't something strange. And then there was a lot of prayer and just visiting different religious orders, you know, and what do I like, what don't I like, where do I feel God's calling me?
You know, how important is that when you're discerning a call, first of all, to religious life is to find the right fit. You know, and I think the same is for priesthood too. There's religious communities, there's diocesan, and it's trying to find, I think we talked at the beginning of the show, the charism, and what's the charism, what's the gift that I have that best helps me fit into this community that has and shares the same charism. So was that the same for you then, sister, in discerning this particular order?
What happened with me was I had a period where I was very content in what I was doing in life, but I suddenly started hearing God's voice challenging me to do a little bit more, to offer a little bit more. There happened to be, I had a period during a Lenten season where things were very relevant for me. The homilies in Mass were all directed towards me. I was sitting among many others, but I felt that, you know, I was being specifically called. The music was very relevant. My prayer life certainly grew. My questioning in a positive manner of the faith, wanting to learn more, definitely was much greater than it had been at any other period in my life. And I was happy with what I was doing, but I felt within my heart the need to go and serve more. The organization that I credit much with my vocation is the Sarah Club, and I went on a retreat that they sponsored. And from there, the doors opened, and really the only community I ever looked at was the Oblate Sisters.
I think another facet, and we talked about it earlier, is that whole sense of family support and peer support. Stephanie, in your discerning process, how important has your family been and continue to be in fostering your vocation?
My family was very supportive of it always, but it was more like they were just open to whatever God was calling me to do. It wasn't like they pushed me one way or the other. It was just, you know, we'll help you discern, and wherever God's leading you, that's fine. And then with going to activities at the Apostolate, there was lots of youth there who were also considering, and so I never felt too out of it by having that call, and so that was very helpful to me.
You know, which brings me to another question, and that's that whole the peer support or friend support. Sometimes when one is discerning a call to religious life, they may not always get support from their friends. Their friends may say, well, why would you ever consider something like that? How often does that happen in your experiences? And was that something that was not part of your experience, but in effect you had support from your friends?
My friends were among the last to know, mainly because my family challenged me. My father is Catholic, my mother belongs to the United Church of Christ. And so that was a little bit different there. My father understood it in terms of Catholic obligation, but I think it was difficult because the community I was interested in was far away. My family is in Wisconsin, and I've come to Eastern Ohio. And so for them, it was one adjustment to think of that. I was also living at home a little bit longer. I was in my late 20s when all this began. And so I was comfortable at home with my family. So my family has evolved. They are a wonderful support to us now. The peers that I have talked to when I was discerning, at first I kept it simple. When I finally had to let people know because I was going to be leaving the area, everyone more or less said, I knew you were the type. I knew this was well within what you were going to do. So my peers, when I let them in, were very supportive. So.
And has that been your experience, Stephanie?
Pretty much the friends I've told have kind of always been supportive. I've always got it more from adults. Like if you tell them you're going to do a vocation, a lot of them look at you like, are you sure you want to do that? Like you're throwing your life away or something, instead of, fulfilling what God has planned for you. And he sure knows me better than I know myself, so.
That's an important aspect of that whole thing is being open to how God is calling us, because obviously a vocation is a call from God. It's not something we dream up or something we make up, but it's actually responding to a call that was initiated by God. And so there's that sense that we have an obligation to respond somehow to that. But along the way, there are those who don't quite understand what that's all about. We are fortunate, many of us, that have our families and our friends that are supportive, but there are those that aren't. I know this is kind of off of our beaten track of questions, which we'll come back to, but what can we say to those people that might not value a vocation in religious life or in priesthood? What might we say to them? Any thoughts?
Well, one of the lines we've often used in my family is, there isn't a better husband out there than Jesus. So I guess that's one way to look at it. I'm not sure I can think of anything else right now.
Sister, any thoughts?
Without, our community, of course, supports the priests, particularly the diocesan priests. Without the priests, there would be no Eucharist. So we gather for Mass, we gather for celebration. We need to encourage vocations, in particular to the priesthood, so that we might be able to continue to that celebration and continue to grow in our faith by receiving the Eucharist. As far as the Oblate sisters are concerned, our charism supports the work and ministry of the priesthood. So we are a very valid and vital part of religious life, within the diocese, within the areas that we serve, within the communities around the world. It is, if we want to continue to be a people of faith, and our faith continues to be challenged in this day and age in many different ways, the priesthood, the vocations to the religious life and the priesthood should be a very important part of who we are as a Catholic people.
One aspect of our discussions in our series that we really haven't talked about is, let's say that there's someone who is attracted to religious life, but has student loans or some outstanding debt or some financial situation. How does that play within religious communities and discerning that? Sister, do you have any experience in that?
As far as debt is concerned, the discernment process often takes a little bit of time, so that the individual should have time to at least consider, how am I going to rectify my debt, or what can I do to help my situation along the way? There are various assistance programs that are out there that would be able to help a person with debt. As far as what the community response would be, on a case-by-case basis, simply if the individual coming in, the candidate coming in, would be honest and open with the mistress of novices and say, look, I am very much interested. I feel I have a call. I feel the Lord is calling me, but I have this problem with I owe student loans. Be open and honest with the people who are in charge of the formation in the community, and God does provide in many mysterious and wondrous ways.
Well, I certainly agree with that, Sister. We're coming down to the last few minutes of our time together, and the one thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is that whole formation process. And obviously, we respond to a call, as a religious or diocesan priest, and we're really formed in this community that we decide to join. And so how has that formation process been for you, Stephanie? And I know it's early on, but what's part of the process for you?
Well, I think a lot of it is just meeting the community, figuring out what they do, spending time with them, getting to know them. You know, and as you get to know them more, kind of what's going on underneath the surface, what are their charisms, what's driving their order, you know, learning about their foundress and all that.
And how's that been for you, sister?
Especially for myself, I came from out of state, so I pretty much had everything for me in a nutshell. I could have experienced our various ministries on a day-to-day basis. For somebody living within the diocese, we hope to try to provide experiences that are, one day we might have Stephanie working in the school, one day we might be going to an event in the diocese, a prayer gathering, a church function of some sort. Another day we might ask her to go and work on the priest side with somebody. So give a little bit of taste as to who we are in our many different ministries.
We're coming down to the last 2 minutes of our time together. I want us to think about some kind of question that we would leave with the folks that are with us. In particular, those who might be considering a call, those who might have wrestled many years in their life. You're responding as a young person. Oftentimes, many people in religious communities come as a second career, which has been part of many in your order. So what question briefly would we want to leave with the folks that are with us?
I don't know if it's so much as a question as a statement, but to be open to God's call, to be trusting, to not worry about what the people around you might think. My family challenged me incredibly in the beginning. Now they are very supportive of not only me, but embrace my sisters, my religious sisters, very well as family. And so be open, just be at peace.
Well, Sister Kristen and Stephanie, we certainly appreciate your presence on our show today, and we wish you well in your continued discernment and in your formation. And Sister, thank you for your ministry very much. Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
How is God Calling You is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.